And Tyler and Elise, who will be presenting first? Or who will be presenting their screen?
I'll be sharing my screen.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Good morning, everyone. It is Wednesday, August 19th. Always good to check the date and the day of the week during these times. Welcome to the JCPS Digital Learning Channel. I am here this morning with Tyler and Elise, and they are going to get us started. Good morning.
Good morning. Just to start as an intro, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Tyler Swim. I'm a mental health practitioner at Chansey and Middletown Elementary. This is my second year as MHP. Prior to that, I spent 7 years with 7 counties as a school-based therapist.
And I'm Elise Christensen. I'm also a mental health practitioner. I work over at Manual High School, and this is also my second year in this job. And I was at 7 counties for about 10 years before I came over here.
Great. Well, thanks for joining us. Tyler, I actually worked at Middletown Elementary. A couple of my buddies are still there. Eric Caston does a great job there, and Sarah Cunningham, the art teacher. So yeah, got some great folks at Middletown.
Awesome. And I'm in the middle trying to share my screen and get the closed caption going.
All right. The 3 dots or the snowman. Looks like you're on your way.
And I got the share. I'm trying to figure out the closed caption.
Oh, okay. So go to the tab that you're going to be. Go to the tab with your slide deck on it. There you go. Go to present.
Okay, I'm with you now.
And then yeah.
And I need to go back to the title slide. For some reason, it jumped on us. All right, so we're here today to talk about referring students for mental health support during virtual learning.
So we're just going to start out by acknowledging all that is going on in the world right now. We are obviously in the middle of a global health pandemic and also in the middle of a racism pandemic, which has been going on for years, but is kind of coming to light more now in recent months, maybe the last 6 months. It seems like both of these kind of blew up or got big right around the same time. The effects of both of these pandemics on staff and students are likely to be really significant. Students have been home much more, which means they're seeing and hearing things on the news about the seriousness about the pandemic and the lives lost and impacted by both pandemics, which can cause a lot of stress for everybody, especially if students have been directly impacted by COVID, whether they're family members or themselves. That can be really, really stressful and scary, as you all know. Our students have also likely heard or witnessed, either on the news or social media, or maybe even in person, the violent acts targeting Black people in America. And we have been seeing this racial uprising, which is very, very, very much needed. However, it can be really hard for especially our younger kids, but also our adolescent students to really process and understand what's going on in the world and kind of how it impacts them. That can be a lot to process.
And another thing to think of is since about March, students have now been home during NTI, and here we are getting ready to start NTI 2.0. And with them being home, they may have experienced or witnessed things that they might not have if they were at school. Things like arguments between parents or family members, or older students like middle and high schoolers having added responsibilities, some having to watch their younger siblings or having to help them with their own NTI, and changes in parent guardian mood or behavior, especially if parent or guardian has lost their job due to this pandemic. Changes in health and nutrition as well. Many JCPS students, their most significant and routine meals are provided by JCPS. And while a significant amount of schools are still offering food and nutrition services to students during this time, some families don't have access to transportation and therefore those students may not be getting the health and nutrition from these meals.
Some other ways the pandemics could be impacting students, we might be seeing an increase in homelessness and food insecurity, as Tyler mentioned, loss of normal routines, decreased social interactions. I think it's really important to note that their sense of safety in the world could be impacted, especially if somebody close to them has been sick or passed away from COVID, or if maybe they've witnessed or seen some of the violence directly, or even maybe some of the looting or rioting that's occurred. That can be really scary for kids to process and understand. So it does kind of shift their worldview a little bit. You might notice that they, maybe you and your children that you work with or have of your own are having difficulty sleeping, or their sleep schedules have changed a little bit. We might also see some behavioral regressions due to the change of routines and feelings of stress. I know I've noticed that with my toddler. He's acting much younger than he was. He's kind of adjusting now, but I think we'll also see it in some of our students with disabilities, just having maybe some regressions there, that maybe they've made progress, but you're not seeing that progress as often. There's also the potential for increased exposure, incidents or witnessing of abuse, domestic violence, or community violence. Schools are often our students' safe place, so we might just keep your eyes open for that. And then we also have to keep in mind that as much as we as staff are struggling with technology at times, our students' parents or guardians might also really struggle with that, which could lead to some increased stress at home and maybe some power conflicts between student and parent or guardian. And so just kind of being aware that sometimes students might be missing class. It doesn't mean that they're being defiant, it just might be that their technology isn't working. So just kind of talking to parents and keeping your ear open for that.
All right, so one thing I wanted to go over with you all is NTI counseling requests and how to go about seeking services, whether that's from mental health practitioners or whether that's touching base with your school's counselor. So for NTI 2.0, counselors and mental health practitioners at every school have been asked to create a virtual platform for counseling request forms. And this link right here provides an example of one of the schools that I am at. So I'll open up that and just show you what that looks like. So what I have done is I've created this link and I have shared it on my website, which we're going to show next. And I've also asked that teachers include the link to my mental health practitioner's website so teachers, families, and students can have access and put in a request. So what you would do here is whoever's requesting the counseling support would put their email address in, and they identify who they are, whether they're a student, a parent or guardian, or a staff member from the school. And then if they're an adult making the referral, they put in their name and the best way to be contacted. And they put in the student's name.
Oh. Oh, crap. Hold on, everyone. I lost our host. Give me just a second. I'll get it fixed. I'm sorry, we lost you for a second.
Okay.
I clicked
So
one spot on my screen and I was trying to resize and everything went away.
okay, we're fine. We can go back and adjust something if we need to.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, yeah, hop on the tab with the presentation.
Okay.
There we go. All right, again, my apologies, everybody. Looks like we're rolling again.
All right. I don't know where we lost, but I'll start back with that.
We were looking at the form. You were taking us through the form that you had created.
Okay.
Great. Thank you very much, Tyler.
Okay, I'll just start right back over with what I was saying is this is just a link that I've created along with the counselor at Chansey, and I'm including it in my MHP website, which I'll show you next. And I've asked teachers to share that in their Google Classroom. And what this link would do is it allows whoever's creating the request to put their email address in to identify who they are, whether it's a student, a parent or guardian, or a staff member requesting services for that student. The adult making the request would enter their info in there, and then they'd put student information in, as well as identify the grade. And because I'm at an elementary school, I only have grades K through 5 on here. It has a checkbox for concerns that you might see in the student, feel they might need help with, as well as an other box if you need to elaborate, and any additional information you want to share. You can also identify if it's an emergency, and in case of emergency, obviously 911, but if they're in the middle of a crisis, there's a text line, and there's also a hotline for suicide prevention there. And the last box on there is just saying that you understand if it's not an emergency, it could take 2 to 3 school days for you to be contacted by the mental health practitioner or counselor. The other link on here is a sample of what my Google site looks like, and all MHPs have been asked to create a Google site for students, teachers, and families to access. And this is another thing that we are asking teachers to share in their Google Classroom just for anybody to be able to access. So here again is a sample of what I've created. And I have links on here for the counseling request form. I also have a link for a consent form if students are going to engage in services with me. There's a little highlight of signs a child might need counseling or therapy services, little videos and things I've linked on here. I've also created a YouTube channel and playlist of different things related to social emotional learning, coping skills, and student supports that could help students, and I have linked that, as well as just other kind of videos or activities kids could engage in when it comes to mindfulness or anger management, ADHD, anxiety, info about COVID, as well as other community and family resources. And many MHPs and counselors may also send out a follow-up form to teachers after getting a counseling request form in order to get more background information from them about that student. So please be aware of that. Another thing I wanted to go over with you all as well was indicators of when a student might need counseling or mental health supports. Those would include a sudden or significant drop in participation or withdrawing. If you have the same student in class this year as you did last school year and notice a change in their behaviors, their personality, or see a different student frequently talks about the pandemics and related fears and anxieties they may have, including expressing concern about when and if we return to in-person instruction, as well as things they are hearing on the news or witnessing in their community. If a student's displaying hopelessness, a student frequently complains about being tired, stressed, or overwhelmed. Another important thing I want to keep an eye on and would encourage you all to do the same are students who are going to be brand new to the school, but doing so virtually. So like kindergartners, sixth graders, and freshmen, I think those are going to be important ones to keep an eye on. And another special note I want to make to all teachers and staff at schools is that mental health practitioners are not just available to help and support students and families. We're also available to help and support teachers and staff. So if you all are going through anything of your own during these NTI periods, or even when we return to in-person instruction, please feel free to reach out to us. We're here as a resource to you.
All right, so here, this is kind of a long slide. Here are some other indicators that your student might need mental health supports. I'm going to go through all of these. Remember, as I go through these, that we are looking, when we think about these behaviors, for consistent or repeated behaviors. So if a student just does things once or twice, or is just having a bad day, I mean, obviously you guys know that's not necessarily a reason to refer. But however, if you have noticed that they're having a pattern of rough days, or if you have additional concerns about their home life or things like that, then just know that you can always process and discuss with your mental health practitioner or your school counselor about whether or not a student needs services. So I'm going to go ahead and start and go through these. So one of the things that you might look for in terms of whether or not somebody needs additional support is poor academic achievement. So this might be a student who has no interest in school, has low motivation, is refusing to do work, or has a decline in grades. So if you, especially if you have the same students this year as you did last year, and maybe last year they were really high achieving, they had great grades, things like that, and you notice that those are starting to slip a little bit, that might be a reason to refer them for some additional support. Signs of anxiety include displaying oversensitivity, withdrawing, maybe they're tearful or cry easily, they have unrealistic worries, complaints about physical symptoms. So this might be, obviously you're not going to be seeing your students as often or in the same way as you did in your classroom. So just kind of keep your ears open. If you notice anybody's complaining about headache or stomach ache frequently, it might be a sign that they have something emotional going on. For depression, this is also going to be, this isn't really something we can always see with our eyes. So just looking for students who maybe seem to be more sad or irritable or tearful during your classes, displaying hopelessness that things won't get better or can't get better. You'll also notice with anxiety and depression that poor academic achievement that will play a role, especially with depression. It's hard for some of these kids to even get out of bed in the morning, so attending your Google Meet classes or completing the work is just exhausting for them. So if you notice that they're not completing work, that's it doesn't necessarily mean they're depressed, but it could be an indicator. Anger, you're going to watch out for physical and verbal aggression, discipline problems. If you have a student who's really oppositional during your synchronous learning or non-compliant with the rules or expectations you've set for that synchronous learning. And again, it's something that's really consistently happening. I know that I have bad days where I'm a little bit more angry. I try not to be too oppositional, but it happens. Kids are human. We're human. So just, again, that's going to be a pattern. And again, if it's like a big display of anger, then it doesn't have to be a pattern. So for attention deficit disorder or hyperactivity, what we're looking at is just, you guys probably know this, it's just that hyperactive kiddo can't sit still, has a significant difficulty that's outside of their normal development in terms of being able to sit still, easily distracted, not able to have a good attention span, and has poor organizational skills. So again, this might be a student who is logging in late or seems really scattered. They can't keep their materials organized. They're forgetting to turn in assignments. That could be a sign that they're struggling. Poor peer relationships. A student who has few friends or is isolated, a student who bullies others. That's something that you guys might be able to actually see during your synchronous learning if the student is being disrespectful or bullying, argumentative with peers, or just has odd behaviors. I know sometimes at the high school level, we hear about students who are being bullied on social media. I'm sure that happens at all grade levels as well. But so just, checking in with your students to see how they're doing. Sometimes they'll tell you that kind of thing. Conduct issues, those include lying and stealing, fire setting. Those are pretty severe. You want to refer for those. Attention seeking behaviors. These are your kids who are just being really silly or inappropriate. They might have inappropriate peer interactions. You will notice this in your synchronous learning for sure. And I'm sure you notice it in your classrooms as well. It'll look the same. And then, as I said at the very beginning of this slide, if you know of any issues with divorce or death in the family, any substance abuse, whether that's parents or grandparents or other family members, or chronic illnesses, those can be really good reasons to refer for a check-in with the counseling staff. With our older kiddos, we're going to watch out for substance abuse or any other risky behaviors. Again, this might be something that's a little bit more difficult to see when we're virtual. I think when teachers are in the high school setting or middle school setting even, it's easier to kind of catch or see that kind of thing. But just do your best. Like I said, this isn't a perfect. You're not going to notice every single kid, but just do your best kind of listening and checking in with your students. Excuse me. So last year, this is just from what I noticed at, like I said, I'm at a high school. This is some of the examples that I noticed during NTI 1.0. I had several students struggling with, it was almost like grief. They were kind of having a hard time accepting the loss of their sports seasons, their loss of pep rallies and prom and graduation, and really just that normal high school experience. I even had seniors who were kind of grieving, obviously, over the loss of the end of their high school careers, but also didn't know what college would look like or if they would lose that freshman experience then too. So there was a lot of difficulty kind of accepting and processing that. My high schoolers also had a very difficult time turning off their brains and being able to unplug. They were on social media a lot, watching the news a lot, just taking in a ton of information because they didn't want to miss anything. But as I mentioned, it was also hard for them to process all of that information that they were getting. So they just were having some sleep difficulties and difficulty unwinding. And I did notice a significant loss in motivation of several of my students. They weren't participating in virtual learning. They weren't turning in assignments. They didn't care. It wasn't a big deal. So as teachers, one way you might want to watch for this is to notice, like, are students' cameras on? Are they participating either vocally or via the chat box? This can be an indicator of how engaged they are, so it would help you determine their level of motivation. But that's just what I saw.
And then some of the things that I saw from NTI 1.0 last spring is anxiety with elementary kids, expressing fear and worry about their health and well-being or their family members or their friends. Talks of COVID and fearing if and when school were to resume, what that would look like, what they'd have to do, how everybody would remain safe. And then also routine. Some students need socialization and thrive on it. Creating a social time for them to interact with teachers and peers would be very important. Like, one thing I maybe encourage you all to consider this year is maybe doing a virtual lunch bunch every so often. There were students last year who I would meet with at the same time every single week. So we would have like a Tuesday at 10 a.m. and that would become something that they could just expect to have every single week to meet with me, and we'd meet for about 30 minutes, and it would just be a time for them to unload and release whatever they needed to talk with me about. Changes in behaviors was another thing. Just students feeling down, a lack or sudden change in participation. Using community and school supports. Another thing I'd want to encourage all teachers and staff to do during NTI 2.0 is to use connections in school resources like mental health practitioners and school counselors to discuss student needs and concerns. Consider providing a link to the Google Classroom to counselor MHP for them to join and have a presence in some of your meetings every so often. If you're ever unsure as to whether one of your students could benefit from counseling or mental health support, reach out to your school's counselor or mental health practitioner. Institute some kind of check-in system in order to build relationships with students and let them report how they feel. Also, use community partners such as 7 Counties, Peace Hospital, and Crossroads.
Yeah, and I just wanted to note really quickly that the Peace Hospital and the Brook are operating as normal. They're doing their mobile assessments. I know I haven't checked on the Brooks partial, but I know Crossroads is going to begin. They're doing in person their normal program. They're able to social distance because it's a lot smaller than our JCPS classrooms. So, just so you know that students are able to get that level of support if they need it. The next thing we're going to talk about is check-in examples. So I would really encourage you all to use check-ins. I'm sure many of you are already planning to do this since you can check in on such a variety of things. You can check in if they're understanding their work, how they're feeling, whether they're sleeping or not, or have food, etc. There's just so many things you can do a quick check-in for. Remember, keep it really simple. It does not have to be complicated. You can even just add a quick check-in question at the bottom of their assignment so it cues you into how they're feeling. On the right here in the pink, that's just a really simple check-in. Obviously, it's not a Google form, but it could be made into one very easily. And this, again, you do it maybe weekly, and it would just give you a little bit of an indicator of how they're doing. We also have a digital check-in I created. I think some of the mental health practitioners are using this, and I think it's great for our little ones because it uses the emojis. Also, all kids love emojis. So it just goes over how they're feeling, and it asks if they need help from their teacher or extra support from the counseling or mental health practitioner. I think at the bottom there's a little bit of, you can add a little bit of additional information about why you are seeking extra support. So these are very easy to create. If you don't feel like you have time, ask your mental health practitioner. Like I said, we all have access to either this one or something very similar, and it would be easy for you guys to link to your classrooms or as an assignment.
And I'm not going to show these videos, but we've also just linked 2 video examples in here about tips for helping children or students cope during COVID, as well as signs your child or student might need therapy or counseling services. Those are in there for you to look at if you'd wish. But that pretty much wraps up what we had. I'm trying to check comments. It doesn't look like I see any questions, but if anything comes up in your mind after this, feel free to reach out to me via email. My name's Tyler Swim. I've got to be the only swim in JCPS. So look up there. Feel free to send me an email and I'll get back to you.
Tyler and Elise, thank you both very much. You're right. These are not normal times, and it's okay that people and students are going to be needing some extra help. So it's great that you shared that information. Thank you very much for joining us today, and you guys have a good day.
All right, you do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'm Stephen Durham with the Digital Innovation Team, and you are watching the JCPS Digital Learning Channel. We have this morning a lot of sessions about mental health, taking care of your students, taking care of yourself. The next one we have coming up, and let me pull that up, is we have stress management for educators. My wife is a teacher as well. She teaches art at Farmer Elementary, and I've been watching her, it's back to school time, and even though she's not going back to the classroom, the stress is ramping up. There's a lot of things to take care of, and it's okay that this is a stressful time, and it's definitely good that we have some stress management for educators. So we have Drew Biddle and Terry Kendall coming up. Let me see if they are ready to go.
Yep, I'm here and I'm good.
All right, welcome, Drew. Good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely.
And Terry, welcome. Which one of you is going to be presenting today?
Both. I'm going to be sharing my screen, though.
Okay, you'll be sharing your screen? Okay, I will control the camera, and it's 9 o'clock. I'll let you guys take over. Just introduce yourselves, and you can begin.
Fantastic. So let me click my share here real quick.
All right. For some reason, I head off of here a few minutes early. I'm not trying to do that. I have to go to another meeting. It's just a packed day today. So
Absolutely.
I understand.
Go ahead, Terry.
So.
And if both of you happen to disappear, I'll just start talking again. So it's okay. Yes. All right, I can see your screen.
Drew can deal with it.
Correct. Yeah. So are we all good?
Yeah. Can you know how to turn on closed captioning?
Yep.
Oh, I do. Yes.
Thank you. Yes. If you could take care of that for me, that would be great. Looks good. All right. You look and sound good. Take it away.
Go for it, Terry.
All right. So my name is Terry Kendall. I'm the specialist mental health or the lead support for mental health practitioners here. Prior to this, I was a school psychologist for 25 years. So I've been around a while. I'm old. So I'll let Drew introduce himself.
Yeah, I'm Drew Biddle. I'm a mental health practitioner with Modern Daniels Academy, and I worked in mental health for 7 years prior to joining JCPS. So I joined last October. I'm glad to be here.
All right. So this is kind of an interesting presentation. There's going to be a lot of different questions to help you with your own introspection and figure out where you are with stress management. Hopefully you get a lot of ideas today. It's much needed information. I mean, the world is like on fire at this point with all the issues, as you just heard from Tyler and Elise. There's a lot going on. So hopefully, I think it's something that everybody in the world could use this. So yes, hopefully you get a lot out of this session. So what we know about stress is that it's psychological, physiological, and behavioral. So it impacts all aspects of your life. By definition, it's a mental or emotional tension from adverse or challenging circumstances. And this stress can be from external sources, which we always think of. We know we, from time to time, have work stress or relationship stress or health challenges or financial issues or that kind of thing that just stresses us out. But we also have internal sources. So we've got these thoughts or stories in our brain that make stress worse or that exacerbates some issues. What we do know is that if you're human, you know what stress is. It's just part of being human, and it's a hard thing to do sometimes. But it's also subjective. So maybe what stresses out one person may not stress out another person. And stress is necessary. We don't always think about that, but it is necessary. We need something to get us moving in the morning. We need something that gets us going and growing and evolving. The problem is when stress is chronic and high a lot, it can impact our health. I just want to quickly talk about a little bit about what goes on in the body physiologically when we're faced with stress. Now, our ancestors had some very real scary challenges, such as fighting or hunting wild animals, fighting people on the regular. A lot happens when we undergo this high stress. So this is an adaptive type thing. As you can see in our brain, we've got this frontal cortex that receives information about this threat. That message then goes to our hypothalamus, which regulates our hormones of cortisol and adrenaline. Now our heart starts pumping big time, a 400% increase, and then you become hyper alert. So blood pressure rises, breathing quickens, eyes dilate, muscles tighten, and airways widen. So our blood moves away from our digestion, skin, and kidneys because we just don't need that. We don't need to eat. We don't want to bleed too much. We don't want to lose fluids. Because we need this blood to go to our muscles. Now our inflammatory part of our immune system revs up. Our fat cells release more fat into the blood. Our blood platelets turn sticky so they clot better, and then liver converts glycogen or fuel into glucose. Now this is what we call our fight, flight, or freeze response. So we do have a very physiological reaction that affects our entire body. Okay. Now, this is the problem with, now we know neuroscientists have shown us that body and mind are the same. They're the same thing. They're not disconnected in any way. The problem with stress is that it can affect your physical and emotional health. It's been linked to heart disease, high blood pressure, a weakened immune system, obesity, and diabetes. So this is why it's really important to listen to your body. When you start getting these body cues, when you're getting stressed and you're feeling that a lot, we've got to figure out what to do about it, because this can lead to sleeping issues, weight gain or loss, stomach pain, irritability. We see all of these different problems with stress. Bad habits can develop. It can lead to smoking, drinking, drug use, because that's what we're self-medicating. Social isolation. There can be work problems. There's just a lot of emotionality with being depressed or crying. Social isolation is another effect. So this is why it's really important to listen to your body. Now, stress management, for all our purposes, is a set of techniques to help us deal with stress. And we do this by analyzing stressors and finding positive ways to minimize its effects. So it's real important. We're going to do a lot of that today, is just understanding our stress. So what does that stress look like? Where do you feel it in your body? Does it affect your stomach? Does it affect your head? Are you grinding your jaw? Are you clenching your fists? Are you fidgeting a lot because you're super stressed? And so it's really important also to identify your stressors. What is really stressing you out in your life today? And what can we do about it? Is it your thoughts and stories and your past triggers? Or is it things in your life such as money or time or relationships? And just to learn your stress signals. What's the first signs of what's going on? What is happening in your body and your mind when you're stressed? And here's another thought. What are your current strategies? What are you doing right now? Are they helpful strategies? Are they unhelpful strategies? Are they healthy? Are they unhealthy? So that's just a place to start right now.
So another area that you can pay attention to a little bit more is your thoughts. It's thinking about your thoughts. It's that metacognition piece. So like, where are your thoughts and how are they affecting you right now? Are you thinking about the past, the present, or the future? And if so, what are the feelings surrounding that? How is that affecting your day-to-day life? Are they positive or negative thoughts? Are you being grateful, or are you being judgmental and critical? So it's those kinds of things that you want to pay attention to a little bit more, that can kind of help you regulate that stress level. Sometimes it's great stuff. Sometimes it's like, like Terry was talking about before, sometimes you need that extra push to get out of the bed in the morning. And you've got this project that you want to work on, or you've got this great thing coming up. So you're kind of amping yourself up and getting that adrenaline going a little bit, and you're using that stress in a positive, healthy way. But sometimes it can also flip on its head, and it can become this huge negative thing too, where it's like, okay, I'm just so overwhelmed. I don't know how I'm going to handle all these things. I've got all these things on my plate. I don't know what to do with any of them. So I'm just going to turtle and I'm going to shut down. So it's really important to know when to get out of your head. So when to give yourself that break, distract yourself, do something positive. And the important piece with this is that, like sometimes just a random distraction is nice. But usually it's a lot more effective if you can find something that's a meaningful distraction. So something that really matters to you. So some people will say, oh yeah, just go take a walk. But if you're not into walking, then you're like, yeah, okay, whatever. Whereas if you're into drawing, or if you're into writing, or doing something creative or something productive that's meaningful to you, it makes a big difference, and it can have a much bigger impact. So the thing that we want you to think about is, are there beliefs about yourself, people, or situations that you can challenge a little bit and say, you know what, like this thing that I've been thinking about, maybe it's not the best, or this is okay, but I need to tweak this a little bit because it's been bothering me so much. Feelings are another big thing. And I know that, some people are like, oh, feelings, I don't really want to talk about that. I think that's kind of the status quo sometimes, right? Because we don't want to acknowledge our feelings. Sometimes it's uncomfortable. Sometimes it's unpleasant. But I think it's really, really important that we give space for our feelings, and we at least acknowledge them. And I'm not saying that you need to go have a huge cry session every time you feel stressed, or go into this huge like, oh wow, I just learned about my entire experience through this introspection of my feelings. But I think just giving them a space to say, you know what, like I didn't really realize this, but I'm feeling this today. And oh wow, I just realized that that's contributing to my stress. So I need to feel, I need to look at this a little bit more, and think about it a little bit harder. So, our feelings can sometimes protect and guide us, and then sometimes it's the exact opposite. But the really important piece with this is that you should not judge yourself about your feelings, because we all have them, whether they're good, bad, ugly, indifferent, it doesn't matter. We all have those feelings at some point in our life. And so I think, that's part of recognizing that we are human and we're going to have these feelings. So it's sitting with that, saying, you know what, it doesn't matter what I think or feel. It doesn't matter what I think about this. I'm feeling this in this moment, and it's serving a purpose. So, the food for thought piece here is, where can you use positive affirmations or imagery to help your feelings become more pleasant? So it's like, okay, well, I'm feeling this unpleasant thing. Where can I kind of boost myself up a little bit more and get back to where I want to be? So these are some responses that you'll typically notice in your body, or in your behavior a little bit more. So maybe somebody else will point this out to you too, where, and it's just little things that you can notice that you may not think much about in the moment, but once you start realizing that, you're like, oh man, I didn't even realize that this was me being stressed. So your breathing is another one. And again, I know that some of these may be like a little, but I think it's really important that we pay attention to these, because they can make a huge difference and they don't cost you much. But if you pay attention to your breathing, and if you look at it and you say, man, I can't breathe right now, I'm kind of like what Terry was talking about, my heart's beating really fast, I'm sweating a little bit. Is it really shallow breathing, or is it deeper breathing? And so taking that moment to reset and paying attention to that breathing can make a huge difference, because then all that other stuff that was going on can kind of take a background and take a back seat and say, you know what, like that's not what's important right now. I'm going to focus on my breathing. Sleep's another huge one. And this is something that I talk about with people all the time. Like I need to practice what I preach a little bit more on this one. I'm not the best at this, but getting good sleep every night makes a huge difference, because if you give yourself a chance to recharge, the stress stuff that wouldn't normally bother you, or I'm sorry, that was bothering you won't bother you anymore. Or you'll realize, you know what, like it's just not worth my time or effort right now. Movement's another huge one. So again, I'm not saying that you need to go get a gym membership if you don't want one, and go lift 500 pounds in the gym every day. Like that's not what we're saying at all. What we're saying is just some form of movement. So like, are you getting enough movement during the day, and what type of exercise do you like to do? How regular are you with moving? Is it just like once every 6 hours I get out of my chair, or is it, oh, you know what, I'm gonna just wiggle in my chair a little bit, or I'm gonna go walk outside for a little bit. Nutrition's another big one that a lot of people don't necessarily think about that much, but it's really important to analyze what fuel we're putting in our body. So are you giving yourself the best opportunity to feel good, or are you kind of maybe not making the best decisions and slowing yourself down when you don't mean to? So it's really important to pay attention to what kind of fuel you're putting in your body. The last one that to really think about is your self-expression. So do you like talking to people? Is that a big thing for you? Can you find trusted people that you can go talk to? Or are you more of like I'm gonna sit here by myself and I'm gonna get inside my own head a little bit and do some creative stuff? So writing, drawing, painting, whatever the case may be, some form of creative expression. So those are all things that you want to think about. Self-talk is another big one, and this kind of goes back to the thoughts. So when you're thinking about your thoughts, notice what messages you're sending yourself. So are you sending yourself messages of I can do this, or I can handle this, or are you sending yourself those kind of automatic messages of, you know what, Like, this isn't for me. I can't handle this. I don't know what I was thinking. How did I even get into this? That can really snowball and turn into this ugly thing, and you can stress yourself out just sending yourself these messages. Whereas if you can just sprinkle in, and I'm not saying that you need to be like, oh, well, I'm the greatest, when you don't really truly believe that, but if you can at least kind of sprinkle in some of that positivity, you'll notice that it has a ripple effect, and all of a sudden it's like, you know what, maybe I can't do this, but I can do this, and I can focus on this piece, and I know that this is within my control. So if you sprinkle that in, it has this nice ripple effect where all of a sudden some of these other things that were bothering you a lot more, maybe not so much anymore. And I think, Terry put in a really great question here. Would you speak to your best friend the way that you're speaking to yourself? Because if you look at that, and if you ask yourself, would I say this to somebody that I really care about? Then maybe you'll be a little bit more gentle with yourself, because I think that's the biggest key. We're all humans, and we all need to be a lot more gentle with ourselves, because we're our own worst critics. And Terry's going to talk about relationships.
All right. Yeah. So we all know relationships have a major impact on our life, whether that's a positive or a negative one. But we also know that all roads converge to ourselves. So basically, this is the time that we can assess our relationships a little bit more when we're talking about stress management, because we know relationships can sometimes be a pretty huge source of stress. So let's look at this a little bit more closely. Which relationships in your life are supportive and loving? And then are there people in your life that you're close to and you feel that you are connected and have a bond with? And who are the people that you go to share both the good and the bad news with? And then, unfortunately, we have those relationships in our life that are more draining or more toxic. Which are those? Where are those boundaries? Like, what boundaries can be set a little bit more firmly? And where can we improve, basically? And we all have those people in our lives that might be that we need to, I guess, have in smaller doses, because they just tax us out a little bit. So how fulfilling is your social life? What activities do you have in your life that does give you fun and does give you connection? Where can you be more assertive rather than passive or aggressive? And really, are you laughing with your friends? Do they make you laugh? Because we know laughing reduces stress. Time management. This is another source of stress for a lot of us. I'm sure everybody on here sometimes has that too full of a schedule or too unorganized of a schedule. And when it's like that, that can give you tons of stress. So at this point, it's a great idea to just review your daily schedule, look at your calendar, figure out what activities do you absolutely have to do, that those are obligations. But then what are those activities that maybe are not important, that you're not as efficient at, that take too much of your time, that you could streamline a little bit better? Where can you be more efficient? And it's always a good one. Everybody has at least one person in their life that's super organized. So ask that friend for suggestions. They can give you an unbiased point of view, or they can look at it without the emotionality or the attachment to your schedule and help you think outside of the box so that you can see what you need to do differently and where you can change your schedule. I don't know. It's just a suggestion, but it's helpful.
Absolutely.
And then positivity. So we all have those people that maybe struggle with looking at the glasses half full. So some of those people look at the glasses half empty, some look at the glasses half full. And so here's our internal stress, that we can change our mindset a little bit more and shift our attitude to positive. Where's the silver lining? Where's the bright spot in the situation? Sometimes our knee-jerk reaction is to look at a situation very negatively, but then when we really analyze it and get out of our knee-jerk reaction and our emotionality, we can say, wait a second, if this hadn't happened, or if this situation wasn't like this, I wouldn't go here. So sometimes that mindset can be shifted pretty easily, but the key is to make it change your brain. So you got to make it a habit. Research does show that gratitude lowers stress and it improves physical and psychological health. I know one of my practices in the morning is I get my coffee and then I make a gratitude list. So I'll list three things every morning that I'm grateful for. And I just kind of sit in that space. So if you're experiencing gratitude, you're feeling it, you're expressing it, you're telling others about your gratitude, you're writing it down, you're speaking it. Those are all good ways to lower your stress and improve your health. And it's a pretty easy way to improve your health. Just get in the habit. If you do that every morning, I tell you, it does help a lot. And then letting go, which is out of your control. There's a lot of attachments we have as humans have. So what are you holding on to tightly? Where are your attachments? And then at the flip side, what can you release? What can you let go of? And maybe that's a good thing if you do have a really close friend or you have a therapeutic relationship, that you can have someone help you get out of your emotionality and think outside the box. Like, what are you holding on so tightly that's stressing you out? Because you're just in the habit of holding on to it. Also, fun activities. What hobbies, interests, or passions do you have? And are you doing these enough? Are you making time for those? And I can tell you, you're well worth it. You're well worth it to do something daily or near daily, something that you really like to do. And then also, how often do we laugh? And I'm a big, me and Drew talk about this. Comedies, find comedies, make sure you're laughing. So movies, funny books, articles, YouTube videos, anything that just makes you laugh, because that, like we said before, that helps you reduce your stress.
So resilience. This is something that we really wanted to touch on because I think it's something important. And it's kind of like what Terry was talking about. We as human beings are incredibly resilient. I think our ability to adapt to difficult situations and overcome tough experiences is one of our best attributes. And so, when it comes to building that resilience, how do we build it? Well, I think one of the biggest things that we can do to help us be a little bit stronger when it comes to overcoming these situations is building social support. So find your people, find the people that you can go to that will have your back no matter what's going on. And people, and it doesn't necessarily have to be that they're going to fix anything for you. It can just be who's going to be willing to talk to me, who's going to be willing to make time for me. I think another big thing, and I'm not going to read all these to you all because I don't want to insult your intelligence, but I think one of the really important things is that we accept change as a part of life, right? So if there's one thing that's constant in our lives, it's the fact that change is going to happen. And sometimes it's little changes, sometimes it's big changes. I think if you recognize, okay, you know what, change is going to happen, then I'm not saying that all stress is going to go away and all of a sudden it's magically fixed. But what I can say is that it'll at least reduce that stress level some, and it'll help bring us back down to a point where things are manageable, because things are going to change. But yeah, looking for those opportunities for self-discovery, looking at realistic goals, hope and optimism, and just taking care of yourself. These are all ways that you can do that. So Terry's going to talk about mindfulness.
All right. There's this concept of mindfulness. For our purposes, we are going to say that is noticing thoughts, feelings, and sensations in the present moment or the here and now. But this is done without attaching negative or judgmental thoughts. I'm sure a lot of you may say it is what it is, which is really healing. The thing about mindfulness is such a simple concept, but it's not that easy, because as humans, we struggle with being present. We struggle with not throwing all these knee-jerk judgmental thoughts or cognitive distortions into things, because we have our own triggers and we have our own past that we're dealing with. I know right now there's so much uncertainty in the world and everybody's affected no matter where you live. So one of the mantras I say quite a bit to myself whenever my mind goes too far in the future is peace is in the present. Or another one is worry is an illusion. So really, I say this a lot. If I start worrying about something, I have no control of it. And basically, I always say that's a made-up story, Terry. Working takes away from the joy that is in the moment. Enjoy that moment, because it takes away your peace. It takes away your joy if you're constantly worrying. And on the other side of that, you can't go back to the past. So if we're really stressed out about things that already happened, and we haven't really dealt with it, and it's still affecting our present, then what do we need to do to move forward? Mindfulness, you want to observe that moment with an attitude of kindness and curiosity. And we want to set that intention of compassion, whether that's compassion to ourselves or others or situation. And the focus is on healing rather than fixing. So those are just all good points about mindfulness. Are we going on to the next one?
Yep. We're on self-care.
There we go. Okay. So thanks. So self-care is a very important concept, and hopefully all of us are finding our own ways to take care of ourselves. I know one of the silver linings with all this is a lot of people were able to slow down a little bit more and really do some self exploration. So I'm hoping that self-care was a priority at this point, especially because we were all a little anxious or down, but we all were in this together. So what I think about when I think about self-care, we are naturally drawn to helping professions. We want to help others. So what I've learned is 75% of teacher health problems are attributed to stress. Okay. The thing is, a teacher's emotional state affects the classroom. Now, that emotional state affects the classroom and ultimately determines if you stay in the profession. Burnout is very high in the teaching profession. Burnout is basically emotional exhaustion. So it really is important. And I've done this talk with a lot of different educators in my career. And I always say, what self-care do you do? And I rarely have anyone raise their hand and tell me something they do. I don't know if it's not prioritized. So if I encourage you to do anything, it's develop something that you do every single day just for yourself. You can't work from an empty cup. And right now, when we're not getting our kids face to face, we're not getting their hugs, we're not getting their smiles, we're not getting the joy that they bring to us, it's even more important to develop these daily self-care. I always think about that analogy with the oxygen mask in an airplane, that you have to put on your own oxygen mask before you take care of someone else. So consider self-care in different areas. So think about what you do physically, emotionally, spiritually, professionally, psychologically, and with relationships in terms of self-care.
I think the last thing that we wanted to leave you all with before we take any questions was it's okay to not feel okay. And I think sometimes it's hard to acknowledge that, and sometimes it's hard to give ourselves the space to not feel okay and recognize, like I've hit my limit, or this is outside my comfort zone. And I think admitting that to yourself is incredibly difficult sometimes, but we all have spaces where we don't feel okay. And that's part of life. It's part of being a human, because nobody has all the answers and we all have problems and stress. So the takeaway from this isn't to focus on that per se. The takeaway is, okay, so when I'm not feeling okay, who can I reach out to? Who are my trusted people? And if that's a trusted family member or a colleague or whatever, that's great. If not, if you need to go talk to a therapist, or if you need to talk to a mental health professional, there's absolutely no shame in that at all. So I think, it's really important to recognize our limits and say, what, like, this is beyond me. I need to reach out and do something about this. So that's where we'll leave you. So
yeah.
Stop my share real quick.
Yes, you are.
Thank you, Drew. Thank you, Terry. That was great information. Yes, it's not normal times, and we need to take care of ourselves so we can take care of each other. All good points. Yes, thank you very much. Yeah. And their presentation is linked on the schedule. You can go to the schedule. If you go to jcps.me/NTI and then click on the teacher toolkit, you can see the live schedule for the JCPS Digital Learning channel, and all the presentations are linked there. So if you want to go back, and it's like they had some good points, I want to revisit that. I don't feel like I'm in a great mental space. I loved when you talked about, like, I have 3 screens going on right now. I spend every day staring at screens, inputting to screens. And at the end of the day, I know everybody's like, you should go take a walk. Well, sometimes it's 90, 95 degrees outside. I don't want to take a walk. So I have revisited something from my childhood just to step away from screens. I don't want to go watch TV, but I've been doing Lego. Like just building Lego with my kids, just something that's hands-on, not a different sort of mental space than working on a computer. So that's kind of been one of my things. But yes, thank you for sharing that. I think it's everybody find your hobby. What's that? Sorry.
We're just saying that was awesome.
Oh, thanks.
I think that's awesome.
Yeah, find a hobby and just, throw some of that in every day. And my team has a thing, we call it Tikoi, take care of yourself. And so, after working all week, on the weekend, Tikoi, you got to take care of yourself so you'll be ready for the next week. But great information. Thank you very much.
Right.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Thank you. Right. Bye.
Bye, guys. And coming up next, we have, continuing with our mental health day, making sure your students and yourself are okay. We have relationship building with Shay Johnson and Lisa McGarry. Shay and Lisa, I see you're there. Who's going to be presenting today?
Both of us. I'll share the screen, but we split the presentation.
Okay. So I got the camera on you right now. Lisa, if you want to introduce yourself, and then you ladies can take it away.
All right. Good morning, everybody. I am Lisa McGarry, and I am a resource teacher with social emotional learning and trauma-informed care.
Good morning, everyone. This is Shay, or Christina Johnson, social emotional learning, trauma-informed care resource teacher. We are so delighted to be here today.
It's great to have you back. I'm having flashbacks to NTI.
You're muted.
No,
You're
thank
muted.
you. It's great to have you back. I'm having flashbacks to NTI 1.0. Yes, when I got to see you all a lot. So thank you for being here.
Absolutely. All right, so we're going to get started. So it's a very, very tough time. Hello, everybody knows that. We're dealing with the pandemic. We're dealing with racial tension going on in our city. And so how do we form an appropriate positive relationship with our students? Through a computer. So that's what we're going to talk about today, relationship building through this pandemic.
All right.
And Lisa, if you could get the closed caption going on there, hover down at the bottom. There you go. And it looks like
it works when I talk, but not always when the other person speaks.
It's looking good now. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So our goals with our training today are to gain some knowledge through the perspective of students, looking at the benefits of those positive relationships, routine, and resilience that we can build in our students. And then we're going to look at some strategies. We're going to talk about some ways in which we can maintain those healthy relationships with students. And then we're also going to look at ways to support our trauma-exposed students during virtual learning. I know that we, in presentations, talk a whole lot about in-person. So today, Shay and I are going to try and give you some tips and some strategies on how to do it when you are across the screen.
All right. So as stated before, the COVID pandemic, it has increased loneliness, stress, anxiety, depression among many students, and not just our students, among many of our educators as well, right? We have a lot going on in the SEL world. We call it the invisible backpack. And everyone's backpack is really, really, really heavy now. And I think it's like a carry-on right now because we have so much going on. And we can't visit our friends and we can't visit our families. And we turn on the news and there's so much going on as well. So what we want to do today is to give you strategies, to give you ideas to increase that positive relationship with you and your students. Through relationship building, we can grieve what they love. We can grieve with them, right? We can adjust to distance learning in a new reality because this is our new reality. Although we can't physically hug our students, we can virtually hug our students and we can let them know that we are here for them. And they'll be able to feel that, right? They'll be able to feel that through genuine, positive relationship building.
Okay, so we are going to talk, and it'll just be Shay and I, unless there's people in a chat where we can respond and we can find out what people are saying. But we want to talk about ways that we build classroom connection before having to work through NTI, and then what are some concerns about building those connections during this time.
Yeah.
We have lots of resources. We have lots of strategies that we share in schools that we support, teachers that we work with in building classroom connection. Shay, you want to start us off and talk about some ways to build connection to the classroom pre-NTI?
Pre-NTI. Well, pre-NTI, educators were able to physically set the table in the classroom. And I'm not talking about bringing in a tablecloth, but I'm talking about standing face to face, knee to knee with our students saying, listen, when you come into the classroom, Miss Shay got you, right? We're going to do a tablecloth of forgiveness. We're going to do a spoon of laughter. We're going to do a butter knife of kindness. I got you. We can talk after class. We can talk before class. Whatever you need, I'm going to be that champion cheerleader for you, right? And students were able to come in and talk and maybe do a lunch bunch or stay after a little bit and converse about what's going on in their lives. And then boom, NTI hit. And there were no more face-to-face unless it was through a screen, of course.
Okay, so one way that I'll talk about it, I worked in middle school, and with having so many students and the schedule changes and all of those kinds of things, that one way that I tried to build classroom connection was learning everybody's names and making sure that I said them appropriately, greeting them at the door in the morning. I also set routines so there was an expectation. They knew what to expect every day coming into my classroom. I know that sometimes it doesn't feel like connection, but when you don't have to think about, Miss Mary's all over the place every single day, I don't know what's going to, come to me today. When students have that predictability, they're building connection. You know what? I know what's going to happen in here today.
Yeah. And then another thing, Lisa, a lot of our students, they need that human touch,
Mm-hmm.
And some don't like it. You have to build up to that. But just the high fives in the morning, just the hug, the side hugs, they needed that, right? And they were expecting that every morning. Then all of a sudden that human connection, that human touch disappeared.
Well, even Shay, getting to witness body language and
Mm-hmm.
letting them, let us know, hey, I'm carrying my blanket and sucking my thumb today.
Uh-huh.
And, things like that allows for that connection and, just not having to always say, because sometimes putting things into words is not easy.
Absolutely.
Let me just show you what I need and hope that you reciprocate that.
Absolutely. But there's a bomb in Gilead. Listen, we got some good tools and good strategies that we're going to be able to connect to our students once again, virtually building back up that positive relationship. Stay tuned.
All right. And then one thing, I don't know if you know of any concerns that you've heard about, but I want to talk about one from a training that we had yesterday with a teacher talking about trying to do a temperature check, or we were talking about, reporting things when students need more support, and concern was there for not being able to find out from students where they would share a little bit more freely if they
Mm-hmm.
were in school and away from parents, if
Mm-hmm.
the parents were the ones who were causing the trauma or abusers or whatever, but they may not share that. So we also talked about some ways to do that. We have some Google Forms that show how to run a morning meeting or a greeting or temperature check, also doing some grateful moments. So just trying to adjust the ways in which we're connecting. And again, maybe not making people put it into verbal communication, but letting them connect with teachers through chat or through that form or sending an email, all of those things through Google. Any other concerns that you are aware of?
No, I'm excited to actually show them the Google form for the temperature checks, because more than ever, right, social emotional learning is now at the forefront. Because if we are not handling the social emotional part of our students, then guess what? Academic is not going to happen, or it's not going to happen successfully. Right? So happy to share this morning. We got some stuff for y'all.
All right, let's move on then. So just to give us a basis with everything that we're talking about, we want to make sure everybody understands that, like Shay just said, those positive relationships have to take priority over everything. Kids aren't going to show up to screens if they don't have to, or if they don't like you. If your class is not engaging, if the lessons that are going on, or if you're not extending something to the students, we know it can become almost impossible to get them to show up. So we have to work really hard to build those positive relationships with the students that we're able to connect with. The second part talks about maintaining an attitude of inclusivity, and we want to make sure that in our virtual world, we are considering all possible situations with people. So I worked with a student, had to meet with him virtually. Well, turning his sound on was really hard because he's one of several children, and his siblings were in the room listening to music, watching TV, but he would keep his camera on so I could see him, but only unmute when he had to say something to me because of all that background noise. Well, if I was the classroom teacher and I required everybody to, have cameras on or whatever else, then that might not be inclusive to everybody. And if that was the case where I had things going on in my home, I don't have a specific workspace, I might not turn my camera on. And guess what? If you keep telling me I have to, I'm not showing up anymore. So maintaining that attitude to allow for different situations for students, let it be a normal thing, not necessarily a negative thing where I feel bad because my situation isn't like Shay's, that you can see her, she's quiet, nobody's around. If mine's not that way, let me also feel like I can be included, just doing it in different ways. The other point that I want to include with that, and Shay will touch on this probably more than I will, but is understanding all the things that are going on in our world right now, setting the tone, setting the expectations for conversations to happen. Our students are going to want to talk about what's going on in Louisville right now. All of the protests, the marches, any of those things, and on both sides of the fence with that. Ones who are kids of police officers, ones who are ones who've been affected by violence, whether it be at the hands of police officer or in the community, that being aware that our students are feeling that and setting the tone, allowing it to be a safe space for them to talk about. So when we talk about an attitude of inclusivity, it's not about the haves and the have-nots or the structured and the non-structured. It's also about those emotions that they're going to bring with them. And then also set the routine, but be flexible in understanding we have things that go on. There's times that I have to take meetings on my phone because there's things I have to tend to. Can't be in front of the computer. So just being flexible and understand that sometimes we're doing the best that we can. And that's in most moments. We're doing the best that we can with what we have. Okay, Shay.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. That's awesome. So NTI 2.0. So what we need every educator that has JCPS in their name to be a champion for our students. And what does that sound like? And what does that look like? Lisa, you mentioned that our kids are coming to school. Well, our kids will be logging on and they want to talk. They want to talk about things that's going on in our city, and a caring adult listens, right? A caring adult listens. Without your comments and without your opinion, because we all have them, but caring adults listen, right? And kids just want to talk. Kids just want to talk, and they want to know that you are intently listening to what they have to say. Every child needs a champion that says, I got you regardless. That's it. That's a period after regardless. I got you, or I have you, regardless. Any situation, right? What does that look like? Being there for your students, come what may. So we're going to listen to Miss Rita Pearson. Every child needs a champion. We're not going to listen to the whole thing, but we're going to listen to the good need to know. Okay, Lisa.
Can you hear it, Shay?
No.
We might not be able to
Yeah,
show it.
sorry, me. Yeah, I wasn't hearing it either. There's issues with playing the videos. I don't know why. I wish I had a good workaround we could do right now.
Okay. But guess what? That's what teachers do. We fill in the gap. So we're going to fill it in right now. What was Rita talking about? Rita was talking about every child that comes into your classroom, every child that comes upon your computer screen is carrying something. And we don't know what it is. Like I said, in the SEL world, we call it the invisible backpack. And guess what? We have them too. Some of us are caring for adults that are not well. Some of us are dealing with more bills than money. Some of us are dealing with wayward children. But listen, we're carrying a backpack. Our kids are carrying a backpack. So what do we do when we both have a backpack? We start that caring relationship. What does that look like, and what does that sound like? What does that look like, and what does that sound like? Especially behind a computer screen. That looks like being honest. That looks like being very flexible, very flexible. Are you okay with a student that says, I can't talk right now? Can we please join another chat, or can we please reconnect later? Are you okay with that? Being very flexible. This world, Lord, I just minimize it to Louisville, Kentucky. We're dealing with some stuff. Are you going to be that flexible, caring adult that says, I got you, you can reconnect with me later?
It's a different... Can I add something?
Yeah, please do.
I just want to point out that, we had to do that with our PD this summer, that there were some that we offered live, but we also did recordings. And I just like to make that point because we had to do that for adults, giving them the time to be able to watch our trainings when they were able to, and then trusting. When they said, hey, I watched your video, can you give me credit for it? Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, you're absolutely right. So what's going to happen to a child that comes in front of the computer screen and you feel that, that teacher tug, you feel that? How do we respond to that? I'm glad you asked. We have, Lisa, can we jump to our choice boards? And I'll come back to this.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So this first choice board that we've set up for you all, and we have one for K through 5, and we have one for 6 through 12. I want you to look at the very first one. It's self-awareness. When you do your morning meetings or your morning check-ins, I want you to check this out. This will be very beneficial to you in the SEL world. It's a temperature check. And we've already listed some of the feelings that your students can check. They're not saying in a computer, I feel frustrated, my sister's getting on my nerves. No, not doing that. They actually can check the appropriate box of how they are feeling that particular morning or afternoon. Keep going down, Lisa. And then we're going to ask them, how is your digital learning going? Right now we're going over to the academic world. How's your digital learning going? Right? I've done some work. I've hardly done any because I don't want to. We're checking in with them socially and we're checking in with them academically, right? This is for free. I can have this. We're giving them, what's your to-do list for today? What is your to-do list for today, right? We're asking them, do you have a schedule for your day? And lastly, how can I help you? Or if I can't, what about the science teacher? What about your homeroom teacher? What about your math teacher? Right? And they do this right in the privacy of their laptop or Chromebook, and they turn it in. Right? And you have access to this form, and you can communicate virtually like that. Right? Of course, it's not face-to-face, but this is the closest thing to it. Lisa, you want to chime in on this form?
I think that you covered most of it. I just like the opportunity it kind of covers everything that, like you said, it has today I'm planning to list the school plan, but I'm also planning to have something fun that we're going to do. So you're getting not only, hey, you know what, I'm going to get all my math done, not my language arts, but you know what, I really love to ride my bike. So
right.
You're learning things about students and you're getting opportunity. And you know what, if they don't want to answer, don't make them answer. But you're getting to build that relationship, knowing their strengths in school or where they're interests lie, and then getting to know something about them personally. So I love both pieces of that.
I love it. And with the today I'm planning to do, our kids need purpose. And if they leave it blank, here's a wonderful time for us to insert maybe ideas. Why don't you check this out? Because our kids need purpose. That time that's just idle kind of gets us in trouble sometime, right? And so giving them this option today I'm planning to do, that's something they can even think about. Well, what can I get into today? Right? And so we have provided 2 choice boards that you can use with your students, or the students, we can give them ideas to do with their family. Lisa, go to the 6 through 12. This is what I want to share, and they can do this with the K through 5 as well. All right. I love, which one was it? Social awareness. Yeah. So TikTok is in. It is what it is, educators. TikTok is in. You're going to have to get on YouTube and find out how to do this TikTok thing. It will brighten your child's day. You can do it for your homeroom, a specific class, or you can do it for a specific child that you've got some tugging feelings about, just needs a small pick-me-up, right? This is 2020. We got to get with it. TikTok, all of our students know about it. All of our students know about it. So it's all about encouraging and uplifting. So they want to tune in the next day and say, hey, Miss Johnson, I think I'm feeling a certain way about her. I think she cares about me. And oh, what a great feeling that is to know that a positive adult cares and wants to have a relationship with you.
Something else I was going to add to that too, Shay, is, if we as educators are sharing, you know what, I'm going to make a sensory bottle or whatever, or even on that temperature check, here's something fun that I'm going to do today. We're also allowing students to see ways that we're coping with what's going on, or handling our own stress and those kinds of things. So again, going back to that relationship piece, it allows us to build that bridge with students, finding some similarities of things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All educators especially need to check out that self-awareness, that first box. So we could get into with our students. Sometimes they want to be behind the computer to talk to you. Sometimes I don't want to be face to face with you, right? But I have this wall here that, I can just tell you we're struggling at home, and I can type that in. And I don't want to hug right now, but I just need to tell you I'm struggling right now. Please help me. Give me some advice. Give me some information. I'm struggling right now at home, right? And I can do it behind the keyboard, right? So guys, we got to get in there, and we've got to chat with our students. We have to build, come what may. They may shun you first, second, third time, but guess what? If at first you don't succeed, you know the rest. Lisa, let's backtrack a little bit.
Okay. So we have several other resources linked in the PowerPoint, but when we are talking about the high sense of belonging, here's some ways that we can do that for students. Having class meetings, and whether it be structured, or I have seen teachers who have had open Google time, so kids can get on, and the teachers might be there. Maybe they're grading papers, maybe they're working on something else, so they're monitoring, but they're letting kids interact like they would at lunchtime or at recess. So having those class meetings, or even the check-in, looking at the highs and the lows of the days, doing that temperature check, finding out what's going on with them, where they might need, some greater support. There's also a form, I think that's what's linked here, with things that students are grateful for. When we're looking at notes of gratitude, and then sharing those. Maybe you start as the teacher with the things that you're grateful for. If you've seen any of our other presentations, we talk about ways to start your day and end your day. Can you imagine if you started with things that you're grateful for? Maybe you pick 1, and then you go to 3. We'll start sharing that with students, because this is a really hard time, and some people are finding it very hard to be positive about anything.
Hey, Lisa.
Yep.
That's my favorite Google form with SEL, the gratitude form. Because listen, can you see me? You see this? This is a big old cup. Listen, our students are waking up every single morning with this cup. Nothing but dust. Especially our trauma exposed kids. Nothing but dust. So it's our job to what? Fill their cup. If you can't fill it all the way up, fill it halfway, right? And that gratitude form will get a person's cup filled at least, let's start with a 4. at least a fourth. And if you start doing it every day, my goodness, it's kind of hard to sit with a computer and talk about what you're grateful for and your cup dried up, right? So that gratitude in the morning, that just does something to a person, right? Fill the cups, y'all, fill the cups.
And then this is the other one I want to point out, and you have to make a copy, but feel free to use this. A teacher sent me this, so we're sharing lots of resources. Here are some get to know me slides, and I loved it because I saw this first one. I thought, I don't know any of these movies really, but guess what? You go to another one. I can do this one. What's that you're reading? I've been reading some books this summer. That's one of the ways, that I'm coping. So there are different templates here. And I'm going to tell you all that this isn't something that I spent a whole lot of time looking in, but it has directions on the side. It's telling you what to do and how to add things. And I know that there are lots of people watching this who are so savvy that know how to take and manipulate this. Please use all that we have included there. And I'm not sure if we have linked it anywhere. I'm going to look on some of these other ones. But we also have a virtual calming corner that I just happened to come upon when I was searching some stuff, and it is fabulous.
Yeah.
To be able to use to give kids, okay, well, here's some activities or some things that you could use to calm down. I'm going to see if it's in this mindfulness activities. But here's some other things that we can do. Doing a check-in, asking open-ended questions. Use those Google Forms. Change them to the ways that you want them to fit for you. Connect with students in every way that you can. Talk about different types of feelings. Do some mindfulness. And let me see if this is the one. It is. So here is a Google slideshow of a calming corner, and I'm going to present this so you can see it. It's active with links.
Yes.
So share it with students and show them. If you want to do some online coloring, it's there. And here's the other thing that I just love about this. You don't have to do any work. If you wanted to change some things, then change some things. But otherwise, it's already there for you.
Hey, Lisa.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go back to the calming corner. I want to share this. I went to, I'm getting real and I'm getting raw. I've been to many, many, many funerals, right, this summer. And all of the funerals were not people that were 21 and over, right? Some of the funerals were actually our JCPS students. And so in the congregation or on the church pews or in the funeral homes, I look around and a lot of the people that came to the funerals were our JCPS students, right? And so I'm looking at this, keep calm and do nothing. We need to introduce our students to breathing. It's time, deep breathing. We need to introduce our students to ways to calm our brain, because a lot of our students, and I'm being raw, have vengeance right now. They're very angry and they have vengeance, and they have a lot of spite. And so how does one teach a child how to calm this brain, right? Because we talk about in the SEL world, our trauma-exposed kids, they're operating out of fear, they're operating out of anxiety, and the math lesson will be there, y'all. The history lesson will be there. But it's time to teach our kids how to keep calm and do absolutely nothing. We're going to share these resources with you. Lisa, go ahead and click on that keep calm and do nothing, because these are all interactive. Look what you get with this. That's it. And so what it is, it's very soothing music. It's not rap music, not country music, not R&B. It's soothing music, hopefully to calm that upstairs brain. That's what we need. Yeah, they're going to think it's crazy at first, but don't stop teaching it, y'all. Don't stop teaching it, because our kids need to learn. They know how to fight, right? They know how to get together. They know how to use those hateful words, but do they know how to self-calm? Do they know how to self-regulate? And this can be a start. We need it now more than ever. Lisa, go back to that whole board. Please, please, please chime in and get on this board. Our kids need it. Heck, I need it. My kids at home need it. You need it. Like Oprah, everybody needs it. Okay, Lisa.
Okay, so I think we're ready to wrap it up.
Yeah.
So what we want to leave you with is just to remember, have flexibility. We need it ourselves. We talk all the time about being grateful, offering grace, setting that table, understanding that we all have things going on. Don't always push for verbal participation. Think about the student that I told you about that had several siblings. One of them was listening to music with lots of cuss words, and he was an elementary kid, and I think he was embarrassed for me to hear it. The other one's got the TV blasting. All kinds of things going on. Sometimes they can turn on their sound. Sometimes they can turn on their camera, and sometimes they can't. Just be aware of that and be flexible. We don't always want to turn on our cameras when we have to sit in our meetings.
Right.
Be realistic with your expectations, not only for your students, but for yourself. And then do what you can to create psychological safety, making it welcoming. Find ways to connect. If you're struggling with that, reach out to one of us. Here's our information. Shay is Christina Johnson. I am Lisa McGarry, or our boss, Lamisa Marshjohn, or even Jennifer, the other resource teacher. Reach out to one of us, and we will do everything we can to support and get you the resources you need. Thank you all very much.
Wait, Lisa, go back to that one. I want to say this last thing. All right, it says the second one. Don't always push for verbal participation. Please, utilize that thumb up, thumb down. But what I want to do this is your charge. Like I'm somebody. This is your charge from me to you. I want you to please, before you log off, especially if it's live, please tell your kids or type it in, I love you and I'm here for you. Now, if you're not the lovey-dovey type, I care for you and I'm here for you. Can you please do that? We don't know what our kids are facing, and chances are a lot of our kids are not hearing that, or they wouldn't be doing the things that they are doing if they knew someone cared for them. I'm here for you. I care about you. Or I love you. I care about you. I'm here for you. Please do that every time you are online with your students. They need to hear it. They will start to feel it, and you will see a difference. All right. Love you guys. I don't even know you. From the SEL team, be great.
Thank you very much, Shay. Great advice. And thank you, Lisa. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. That was Lisa and Shay talking about how to build those relationships with our students during these troubling times. I know we have about 700 people watching right now. I think some of you might be ready for the JCPS kickoff. The JCPS kickoff is actually happening on the JCPS YouTube channel. So this is a JCPS digital learning channel. This is where we have lots of programming to help teachers learn new ideas, innovative ideas to work and impact their students' learning. But the JCPS kickoff, you just want to go in, and I have the link posted in the chat, and I will post it again. But basically just Google JCPS YouTube channel, and that should get you the link, and that's where the kickoff will be happening. We're going to stop with live programming here, and we'll just have, it will show some previous episodes. But I'm going to hang around a little bit in the chat to help point people to the right spot. So if you're looking for the kickoff, YouTube, JCPS YouTube channel, and that should get you there. Thank you very much, and I'll be there in the chat posting that link again for you. And just to make sure I'm not going to leave anybody hanging, I'm going to open a tab. I'm going to Google JCPS YouTube channel, and that should take it, and it should be the first hit. We'll go right there, and you can see that it's live now. So basically, you just are going to click on this click right here, and that will get you to the JCPS kickoff. So Google JCPS YouTube channel, and that will get you to the kickoff program. And one more time, I'm going to post that link in the chat. There you go. The kickoff link is there. So you're just going to launch a tab on Google, search JCPS YouTube channel, and it'll bring you, the first hit should bring you to something like this, and just click here and you will see our superintendent, Marty Polio. You'll hear from Carmen Coleman, lots of great people to get us excited for a challenging but should be great NTI 2.0. But you are welcome after the kickoff to come back to the JCPS Digital Learning channel right here, and we're going to have some more live programming this afternoon. So go to the kickoff, check out the kickoff, do what you need to do, and come back and join us after lunch. We will be here with live programming at 12:30 today. So thank you everybody for joining us, and I'm going to head on over to the kickoff and see what they have to say, and have a great NTI 2.0. We're here to support you. Take care.